Well, ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to the Courier Dunfermline by-election hustings. You're all very welcome tonight. My name is Steve Barchton and I'm the Deputy Editor of the Courier. And for 12 years, it was my pleasure and sometimes my pain to be political editor, but a job I enjoyed very much indeed. And I'm your chairman tonight. In just over 48 hours' time, the voters of Dunfermline will elect one of the people on the stage to represent them at Holyrood. And tonight is your opportunity to question the candidates and see, as it were, what they are made of. What they say tonight and how they conduct themselves may well determine the outcome of this contest. The plan is to end at 8 o'clock, so roughly an hour's time. But if we're running hot, i.e. there's a good debate from yourselves on the floor and from our candidates, then we will run for another 15 minutes. But by 8:15, we will have finished, so you can be sure to get home for whatever it is you need to get home for or whatever else that might be. The format tonight is simple. Questions from the floor and from the public who have emailed into us, put through me to the candidates, and then debate from you and with you around that. So I very much want you to take part in this debate tonight. Please do. We're delighted to have a full turnout of our candidates, and I just want to thank them very much for coming. We've made it kind of easy for us and for them and from you to have their lovely faces and their names behind them, but I'll just go from your left to right to run through them. John Black, Independent; Cara Hilton, Labour; Zara Kitson, Green; James Reekie, Conservative; Susan Leslie, Liberal Democrat; Shirley Ann Somerville, Scottish National Party; and Peter Adams from UKIP. So good to see you all tonight, and thank you very much for coming. So without further ado, we'll start with the first question. The first question is from Colin Leask. Mr. Leask, your question, please. Sorry, we do have microphones.
You've all been campaigning for the last 4 weeks, and You've all been campaigning for the last 4 weeks, and you want to represent the people of Dunfermline and the villages, etc. I'm sure you've learned an awful lot from the people of Dunfermline as you're speaking about the issues. With that information, what have you done so far for the people of Dunfermline? That's to all of you.
Fine, thank you very much. John Black, we'd start with you. What have you learned over the last few weeks of campaigning?
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank the Courier for inviting me here. The BBC don't let grey-haired, wrinkled people on air. I walk the walk. The others talk the talk. I have attended the Court of Session judgment on the Powers football team. I attended the Monday night meeting, and from that I've addressed the problems in the SPFA and the Scottish Parliament. I've proposed opening Mulgannett coal mine, and I've met with Jim Parker, who's the Scottish Mine Workers Consortium chairman, and I've also met with the taxi drivers. They had a problem with pirate taxis. If any of you hire an illegal taxi in Dunfermline, the illegal driver is no longer covered by insurance, and if there's an accident, you're not going to be supported. And that's a number of the things I've been doing.
Good, John. Thanks for that. Susan Leslie, I wonder what your experience has been over these weeks of campaigning.
I think the thing that comes across most strongly from people on the doorsteps is the fact that they care very much about their local public services, their hospital, their police, their fire services and their schools. Those are the things that the people of Dunfermline care about very much. They also have an immense pride in the city of Dunfermline, and I think that has come across very strongly on the doorsteps, as they want to see more of that pride and more of that restored back to the city. So what have we been doing about it? We have been campaigning hard on the hospital issues. We were out in the High Street collecting signatures for our petition to take to the Health Minister, along with myself and Willie Rennie. We've been campaigning hard for more investment into the hospital. We have seen some announcements about the hospital, but those are actually just re-announcements. The midwife-led hospital is going to have to wait. You know, the investment isn't there for it. So we're campaigning to have the whole situation looked at again. Particularly, I'm just going to talk about the hospital at this instant, maybe able to talk about some of the other issues on the doorstep later on. But But I think it's important because it is consistently the one issue that has been brought up time and time and time again on the doorstep is the lack of A&E facilities at Dunfermline. Now, over last winter, we had incidents where the A&E in Kirkcaldy was shut, and there was always the fallback for Dunfermline. That fallback's gone. So that's the kind of thing that we've been campaigning on. And
I think we'll probably come back to this, Susan, but yes, thank you. Yeah, great, thank you. James Reekie, you've stood in Dunfermline before. What do you find the experience around and about the streets and doorsteps this time around?
Well, I spent a lot of time looking at cost of living issues in particular. I was at Persimmon Homes last Saturday to talk to their managing director to Scotland, and they said they've already seen sales through the government's Help to Buy scheme, which is always positive. And through those sales, they've managed to take on new employees in the local area, which I think is absolutely brilliant. But I think as well, you know, the economy's growing and there's a good customer base in Dunfermline. But actually, a lot of small businesses, well, small and medium-sized businesses in the town centre now are struggling with rates. So I've been raising that issue throughout the whole of the campaign because it's a serious commitment for local businesses and they're not getting a fair deal on rates. So I think that those are sort of the issues we've been focusing on. Of course, schools and health as well. But you know, I think we need to get some sensible centre-right policies back in the Scottish Parliament to get our local businesses moving again.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Cara Hilton, what's your experience been on the doorsteps?
Well, I live here in Dunfermline. My children go to school and nursery here, so this is an area that obviously is very familiar to me. You know, I already work full-time for the people of Dunfermline as a local councillor and also as a caseworker for the local MP, Thomas Docherty. During the past few weeks, people have been raising with me on the doorsteps the fact that we've got a Scottish Government that has got the power to make a real difference to people's lives, the power to make childcare more affordable, the power to open up opportunities at the Fife College, the power to make it to help our town centre regenerate. But rather than doing that, they're too busy breaking up Britain, putting Scotland on pause. I think that's unacceptable. And you may joke, but that is the issue that people are raising with me in the doorsteps. I've been working full time for the people of Dunfermline. The frustrating thing is we've got a Scottish Government that is not a Scottish Government that has put Scotland on pause.
Okay, well, I think that's I'll maybe slightly change the order and ask Shirley-Ann Somerville how she's found the experience on the doors as she's been looking around.
The question was about what we learned and what we've done, and I think what I've learned once again during the campaign is I think the power of community campaigning. I think all the schools groups have set the agenda for this by-election, and that's a credit to them and their organisation that they've managed to do that and to get that such a heavy focus in it. What I've been doing is trying to achieve some results already. That's difficult as a candidate, but we've tried that. I have had constructive dialogue with the Chief Executive of NHS Fife about the midwife-led maternity unit at the Queen Margaret and future development for that. I'm pleased that he's confirmed that. What we now need is an MSP who will deliver on that and hold them to account on that. And that's what I would intend to do if I was successful on Thursday.
Thank you very much.
Could I point out that the midwife-led...
John, sorry, I'm just going to let everyone just answer this question. We will get back to that, I'm sure. Peter Adams, how's the UKIP message been going down on the streets of Dunfermline?
UKIP message has been going down surprisingly well. Everybody seems to think that it doesn't apply up here in Scotland. And the SNP will try to tell you that we don't belong here in Scotland and that we're an English party. Well, we're not. There are a lot of people out there, as I found out in the doorstep, are just so fed up of the main parties that a lot of them were considering not voting at all. But a lot of them, again, have had second thoughts, and looking at my manifesto, a lot of them have said, yes, they will actually be getting out and voting. The other thing is that there's a lot of people out there who don't want to separate Scotland from England. There's a lot of people out there who say, I don't trust salmon. And that's the big thing that's coming across. Yes, you've got your SNP supporters who are committed to separating from us. Also, the great thing is about not being controlled, again, this issue of a separate Scotland and independent Scotland in the EU, that's a complete nonsense. Because as long as you're controlled from Brussels, you don't have any independence at all.
Okay. It kind of wasn't, but you had your say. Zara Kitson, how's the Greens been faring on the doorsteps?
Good. I've learned a lot about a huge lack of voice for communities. I think people do feel disconnected from mainstream politics, and they want more values and principles in our politics. That's clear from speaking to people around the doors. People feel that they don't really know which option to take, and that there isn't a fresh voice there for them, and I think that is something that I can offer. We are one of the least democratic countries in the EU in Scotland. We have huge lack of voice in Scotland, and it is a real problem. And I would replicate what Shirley Ann said about the school groups. I think that they've done a great job to actually raise that to our attention. But I am concerned that it shouldn't take a by-election to raise concern to issues like that. And that is something that is clear from speaking to people. People want politicians to actually engage locally with their communities, not just during an election campaign, but all the year round. And that's something that I will promise to do, is actually engage with communities and listen. And that's really what I've done a lot of so far, is actually just listen and engage with what people want to let us know. Because this election isn't about anyone else other than the people of Dunfermline and the villages, and sometimes it gets distracted from that point, particularly between the sort of ding-dong of politics that happens. Things that I've been doing locally, I've launched a petition for no evictions against the bedroom tax, calling on both Fife Council and Scottish Government to stop playing political football with this issue and actually just bring about no evictions. This is people's lives we're talking about here, and people have already been threatened with eviction notices in Fife, and it's a serious concern. I've also I did a survey over the last 2 weekends in Kincardine and Curtis in relation to the unconventional coal gasification proposals along the Forth. There's real concern there, real lack of awareness, and it is an industry that could be coming our way, and there's loads of environmental and health concerns around it. So they're two of the key things that I've done, and I have been connecting with people around reimagining what we could do for the Dunfermline High Street and better buses and rail links to actually bring about real local regeneration and jobs for the people of Dunfermline and the villages.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I think that all the candidates had an opportunity to give their vocal cords a go, so I'd like to move on to another subject. Thank you for your question, Mr. Leask. If we move on to another question, please. I take a question from Darryl Pitcher. Mr. Pitcher, your question, please. Thank you. If you wait 1 second, we'll get a microphone to you. I don't know if we need them in here, but there are some people up the back, and we can probably hear a bit better. Have we got another microphone? Yeah? Technology, eh?
Does this one work?
Yeah.
Right, thank you. In the light of the Bill Walker case, do the panel support the right of recall over politicians?
Okay, a good question there. Could I just kind of ask that we stick to the subject rather than the personality, because I think we're all familiar with why we're all here today. But a very serious subject about what can be done, a very serious question about what can be done with a politician in these kind of circumstances. And Shirley Ann Somerville, I wonder whether you would start on that one for us, whether there are sanctions that should be brought in against politicians to have them, if you like, removed, and if so, by how?
Sure. I mean, I think it's a very important issue that you've raised, and the power of recall is a very, very important one. One of the aspects which people find exceptionally limiting about elections is the time between them and the inability for people to have their say in that time. And I think the power of recall is a very, very important example of how we could actually bring the power back to the electorate rather than to politicians and to a parliament. So yes, I would. The First Minister has written to the Secretary of State for Scotland asking for the power of recall to be devolved to the Scottish Parliament, so that the Parliament, which would have the members in it, would then have the ability to introduce that recall. I believe he is still waiting to hear back, but I hope this is something that we can work on a cross-party basis and on a cross-parliament basis to assure that people can have a better say in the democracy for their constituency.
Thank you for that. Susan Leslie, as one of the a member of one of the parties of government, and obviously if this is to change, then it's going to have to come from Westminster, being a matter that would have to be enshrined in law at Westminster. If you're successful on Thursday, what will you do, if you believe it should be done, to bring about some kind of sanction if necessary under these kind of circumstances, if you believe that to be the case.
Well, Liberal Democrats in Westminster have supported a recall principle. I think there needs to be a lot of discussion about it. Those have been initiated already in Westminster. Discussions have started. I think you're absolutely right. It needs to be done in the cool light of day, not in the heat of a situation like we're in just now. So I think it does take time, and I think there needs to be discussions, and Shirley-Ann is absolutely right that it must be done on a cross-party basis. I've no difficulty personally with it being devolved to Scottish Parliament as well to have their own arrangements, but you're right, it comes from Westminster, but you won't see any opposition at Westminster from Liberal Democrats in putting something in place to make sure that the electorate have some level of accountability, that there's accountability there between MPs and MSPs. I think it goes further than recall. I think there is also an element where MPs and MSPs and local councillors, and I speak as a local councillor, where I always feel that I have an obligation to make myself available to my constituents through surgeries, through regular newsletters, through being available in the community, turning up to community events. All of that is as important at local level and at MSP level and MP level. And that's certainly the commitment you would get from me as the MSP, is that level of engagement which allows your constituents to meet with you and see you out and about in the community. It's wider than recall. It's about accountability generally.
Okay. Thank you for that. James Reekie, as a member of the party, the other party of government that can actually do something about this, if you support it, what would you be saying to David Cameron or any of your UK colleagues?
I don't really get a meet with David Cameron over it.
Well, I say you may wish to aspire to, hopefully.
Maybe. But no, I think there's two things you've got to look at there. You've got to look at why you need the right of recall in the first place, and you wouldn't need to recall Bill Walker if the SNP hadn't selected him, despite knowing about it. But all the nationalists in the room are shaking their heads. But the reality is they all knew about it.
Okay, let's stick to the issue, not the personality.
Yeah.
I don't really want to talk about
that's part of the recall issue. Now, in terms of recall, yes, I do support recall, but you've got to look at it's not just about recall. We supported a motion in the Scottish Parliament calling for the docking of pay for those who were sentenced, and I think that's absolutely the right thing to do. But as Susan says, it's also about local accountability. There was no accountability in the Bill Walker case. The SNP selected him, they didn't expect him to win, and he won. And they won't admit that. But I think, we do need to see a right of recall, definitely for the Scottish Parliament.
Okay. Susan Hilton, if you agree that there should be some kind of sanction, I'm not obviously not presuming your answer, how might that be achieved if you do agree, and if you don't, then please say why.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Cara Hilton, my apologies. Azara and Cara, I shouldn't have had you pats together. My apologies. Cara Hilton, my apologies.
I agree with the others that the right of recall is something that we have to look at. But I think James is also right to point out that we need to be careful about who is selected to stand for these positions in the first place. Well, the reality is the SNP knew about Bill Walker before he was selected for Dunfermline, but they still allowed this man to be forced in the voters here in Dunfermline. I think it's an absolute disgrace, and you may say that you don't want to talk about that, but that is the reason why we are here tonight. That is the reason why the Dunfermline by-election has been called, and Dunfermline deserves better than that.
Yeah, I just want to. There's obviously some voices coming from the audience, and I think this will probably be a good time to get some opinions from the audience. Who here, who is a voter in Dunfermline, would have wanted to see some sanction taken against the previous incumbent before he decided to leave of his own volition? And who wouldn't? Indeed.
Well, he admitted to the offences before he was
absolutely, indeed. Yeah. So I think it's pretty fair to say.
He admitted to beating his wife before he was proven guilty.
It's pretty fair to say that,
So the question has to be, why did the police do something? Somebody coming up with
No. I don't think the police can do anything about removing someone's MSP. The issue is about removing somebody as an MSP. And no. Yeah. So what I wonder is, did you, those of you who put your hands up because you're voters in this constituency, is why I framed the question that way, do you feel that you heard from any of the panellists, any of those who spoke, who might be your next MSP, whether there was a remedy? Everyone agrees that it's a bad thing, but is there any kind of remedy there that you heard? Is there an idea there that they could take forward? Did anyone hear one?
it's nice to have the opportunity to do this, but it'd be even better if they answer the question, not what they think we want to hear.
Okay.
First question, brilliant. 5 out of 7 answered the question. If they can continue it that way, fantastic.
Did you feel that the questions were answered this time around on this issue?
No.
Did anyone feel that your question was answered? The lady there.
No, it wasn't. But they spent time criticising the other
Each
party.
other, which is, yes.
As opposed to, I believe, the SNP should have acknowledged
Fair enough.
the first problem,
Yeah.
that the party of itself, be it if it was another Labour, the respected party acknowledging the mistakes of their MSP.
Okay.
Can I come back on that
Yes,
one?
sir. Sorry.
I'll come
Hang
back
on a
on that.
minute, don't you come back on this
I
one?
was
Sorry.
Bill Walker's election agent at the previous parliamentary election in 2011, and I knew nothing about these allegations against
No.
him. I didn't know Bill well, I will admit, before I became his election agent, but I knew nothing personally.
Indeed.
And if these allegations were never brought to my attention as agent in the long run-up to Bill's campaign, and he had been a serving councillor in Fife Council for many years prior to that, and had passed no less than 3 enhanced disclosure checks.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So it's not just about the SNP.
No, I do understand the point. But what we're trying to get at is whether there is something that your new MSP can actually do to exert influence to change this. And I wonder if there's anyone who does have an idea about how that might be done.
Steve, one of the things, if you go back to the 2010 Westminster election, the power of recall was actually included as part of UKIP's policy. This is part of the getting people involved in what's happening. If they've got a problem similar to what is happening with Eric Joyce across in Falkirk, this saga wouldn't have been dragged out if they had the power to recall. And it goes back to something Sarah said about local democracy. We also believe in local referendums, similar to Swiss. That way you get local people involved. This way on the recall you get local people involved. If the candidate is not doing the thing, you can pull them in or her in and re-vote them. Get somebody you want in.
Okay, Sarah?
I mean, for me, at the end of the day, being an MSP is a real privilege, and it should be treated as that. And the electorate are our employers. So you should, at the end of the day, have the right to actually challenge the person that you've elected to do a job and to recall them if they're not fit for the job. I think we're all in agreement with that, and I think that then we should...
I don't think you get any argument by the candidates or indeed for the audience. It's how. It's the how.
I think it's important that you remember that this is a matter for Westminster at the moment, and there has been a commitment from the leader of the Liberal Democrats in Westminster that this is on the agenda. You've also heard from Shirley Ann that Alex Salmond has requested that it be devolved to the Scottish Parliament. Now, whether that's going to be possible, I'm not a legislator in terms of the legalities of writing bills as yet, but that may come. But I personally have no difficulty with that. But I think what you've got there is you've got a very clear answer. In terms of, at least from my party in Westminster, there is absolutely no difficulty with putting in a procedure and putting in place a measure to be able to recall your MSP or your MP.
So
and it's very important.
Are the Conservatives in government the hold-up then?
You can ask them.
Are you the hold-up then?
No, I mean, there's a good tranche of good eggs, good Conservative backbenchers who support the right of recall.
Yeah.
I support the right of recall. That's my personal view. But, I mean, it's obviously... As Susan said,
you can understand the frustration, though, of the public, not just in this constituent. Every time there is an issue like this, everyone says something must be done, and then I'm sure we'll be having this debate in 10 years' time and asking another audience and saying something must be done.
But I think the other thing you've got to remember is that every case is also different, and it's very easy in the heat of the case that led to this by-election to start going into a process that perhaps, well, we need this.
There was no heat in 2010 when we brought out our manifesto. It was perfectly
If I can carry on just for a minute. It's very important that we appreciate that each case is different, and that's why the discussion and the process almost has to be slightly apart from a particular case. And I think getting into accusing one party or another of their approval process or anything else is quite frankly not helpful at this particular moment.
John, just for completeness, are you in agreement there should be some kind of sanction brought in against?
No politician at any level is above the law. It depends what you mean by a criminal act. Is breaking a manifesto a promise of criminal act. No,
Not yet, no.
tuition fees
No.
for
That I know of.
Manifesto promises aren't worth the paper they're written on.
No, lying in politics isn't a criminal act. Yet. Perhaps it should be. Any more from the audience? Yes, sir.
I think the principle of recall is not just about a legal problem. You have to widen it out. It's also about whether somebody's actually delivering the role that they've been elected to fulfil. Yeah. So if a member of Parliament only pitches up for less days than there is in a week in a year, as some MPs near to this constituency do.
You're not talking about Gordon, are you?
That should be something you can recall him on as well.
Right, well, I think it could be interesting, depending on how tight we draw the rules, you might find that Holyrood and Westminster are pretty much empty if we drew those too tight. But thank you, that was a useful, interesting debate. But just for absolute clarity, and so that we can print it in tomorrow's Courier, am I right in thinking if you disagree that all the candidates are in favour of pursuing some kind of recall or sanction in this kind of situation or others like it? Is that fair to say? Yes. Thank you for that. We'll move on. We did have a number of emails that people sent us asking their questions. I'm not sure whether they're here tonight. But one of the questions that came up most frequently, which I know is one that's been debated hotly, certainly in the columns of the Courier and elsewhere, I'm sure, is the question of local schools, and particularly the proposal to close Pitcorthy, Wellwood and Crombie. And I'm just interested to know, and I'm sure the voters are, of where you stand. And Cara Hilton, I wonder if you could kick off on that one.
Well, obviously, the schools have played a big issue in this campaign. Obviously, the Pitcorthy Parent Council Campaign Committee are here in the audience tonight, and they've done an excellent job in highlighting their case during this campaign. As a mum of three myself, schools are obviously very important to me. My children go to school here in Dunfermline, and I would like to keep every school here in Fife open. The only reason that Fife Council is having to look at the school estate is the fact that on the one hand, there are 11,000 empty places in our primary schools. On the other hand, we're facing £100 million of cuts from the SNP government. So, rightly, there are difficult decisions ahead. And I found the SNP's hypocrisy in this absolutely astounding. I can see Douglas Chapman in the audience, but when he was the education spokesperson on Fife Council, he said that schools would have to close because of economic realities, because of the hits that were cut in Fife from the government at both the UK and Holyrood level. So if Shirley Ann Somerville really wants to give a commitment to the parents of Pitcorthy, Wellwood and Crombie School, that she will keep their schools open, then why doesn't she ask Alex Salmond for more money for Fife to keep our schools open? And why won't she ask Mike Russell to call the decisions in?
I will ask her right now, but do you advocate keeping these schools open or allowing them to close?
Well, I've been clear from the start. I support the campaign to keep Pitcorthy Primary School open. I have called, let me continue, I have called both publicly and privately for Pitcorthy Primary School to be withdrawn from the consultation process because I believe Pitcorthy is an excellent school, it's full to the brim, and it's an area of Dunfermline where more and more families are moving into. I think we should keep Pitcorthy School open, and I will fight with the parents to keep their school open. And regardless of the result on Thursday, I will be standing shoulder to shoulder with the parents in their campaign. Will Shirley Ann Somerville give the same commitment to the parents of Pitcorthy School? Well, I've met with the parents at Wellwood and Crombie, and I will work with them also to find solutions. I mean, I would like to keep these schools open, but the fact is, take Crombie for example. It costs £16,000 to educate a child at Crombie. That's 4 times more than the Fife average. When the SNP are hitting Fife with such big budget cuts, it makes it extremely difficult. You know, this is the situation we're in, and it's Alex Salmond. He is the one that can save. Alex Salmond is the one that could keep these schools open. If it wasn't for SNP cuts, we wouldn't be facing these tough decisions in Fife.
Okay, thank you for that. Shirley Ann Somerville. It's all Alex Salmond's fault for cutting the funding to Fife Council, and if it wasn't for the SNP government, these schools could stay open.
Sure. I don't think Alex Salmond was in the council chamber or at your area committee when the vote was taken. He didn't vote
He's
to
underfunding the council tax freeze. That's why Fife councils having to make such big cuts.
You did. And I'm afraid I'm afraid the consultation process has already had an impact at all 3 schools. We're already seeing people making different educational choices for their children based on the fact that the consultation is just open. And that's why the vote back in May was so disappointing that consultation process was allowed to go ahead, because it is already having an impact and putting an immense amount of stress on the parents and the children. The consultation process is flawed. There's a number of holes in that. It's sad that a campaign group has had to resort to freedom of information requests to try and get information from the council to prove that, but I commend them for it. The impact is broader than these 3 schools, of course. We're seeing catchment area changes. We are seeing an impact on the schools that they will be going to. And this idea that we can all just blame this on Alex Salmond, it's just a nice easy out for the decisions which the council are taking, but it then comes back down to looking at how much it would cost to refurbish Pecorthy and compare it to how much it will cost to move the kids, split them up from their friends that they already know and scatter them to different primary schools. It will cost more to close the school than it will to refurbish it. So let's not blame the SNP government for that. That's an impact that we have to look at in Dunfermline. And I very much hope it doesn't get near Mike Russell as the Education Secretary. This doesn't need called in. If Fife Council and the Labour administration see a bit of common sense, listen to the parents, look at the amount of information that they have brought through, and we won't get that far. Now, just in respect of the Crombie School, it's very easy to just talk about a school and the amount that it costs. You know, we can blame the ex-education convener for a school estate review. That was reasonable. What he then goes on to talk about is you can only look at the school estate review based on educational benefit. And in a rural school in particular, a designated rural school, which should have a presumption against closure, you should again be looking at its impact on the community and its transportation links. And that's why these consultation processes are flawed. It doesn't look at the rurality and it doesn't look at the financial implications. So let's not waste money by closing a full popular school with high educational attainment. Let's put the parents' mind at rest and save the school, and then they can get on to actually developing that school even further.
Okay, thank you for that. I just want to, I'd very much like to go, thank you very much for being here tonight, can I call you the campaigners. Do you feel reassured, confident that you have the support of the 2 candidates who have spoken so far, at least, in this issue, and do you recognise what they say as your understanding of the situation?
We've had tremendous support from a lot of the parties, and we are not impossible. We haven't had
of course.
support of any of the candidates. We're just really grateful for all the support that we've had and all the opportunities to make sure that our campaign has been put into the press and given it maximum coverage and exposure. And so just thanks. But we do want to know after Thursday.
Yeah, how much emphasis can we have that regardless of what happens on Thursday, the candidates sitting up there will continue to support us in the campaign to school?
Will all the candidates continue to support them? I can't imagine there's going to be any candidates who say, I'm not supporting it. I'm for closing a school. Please vote for me. It doesn't really work.
Can I come in to talk about after Thursday and really to, in a way, wind the clock back a bit, because I came into this situation looking at the school estates and the 3 schools in Dunfermline and the other schools across Fife many, many months ago. And I came into that debate as the chair of the scrutiny committee and came into it with a position of what, I think it's important that I have come in with a position of trust with parents, and I need to maintain my integrity in terms of that throughout this campaign and beyond it, because right at the very beginning of the debate about these schools, a decision was made, and that's been confirmed only just last week by the Scrutiny Committee, that the parents' groups and the community groups will get the opportunity to come directly to the council meetings and to put their case themselves. I made that commitment to those parents months ago. I spoke to Kirsty and the other campaigners at a meeting in Fife House. How many months ago was it? It was before the summer. And we talked about what would happen after the consultation. The consultation reports will be coming to the Scrutiny Committee first, and we'll be then making the recommendations to the Executive. and that at that point it was really important that parents' voices would be heard. I've had the same conversation with the other groups in the Dunfermline area, and particularly the Wellwood parents have said that is exactly what we want. We want to make our own case. We want to be listened to. That's the assurance that I have given the parents throughout this campaign, and I will commit to them afterwards that I will make sure that that happens.
Okay, thank you very much for that. We're going to move on. There are other things to be discussed. And, yeah, on you go, John.
In Crombie, there are approximately 35 children in the village. Only 15 of them attend local school. 20 of the parents have already voted with their feet to move their children elsewhere. This is a local issue. It's nothing to do with the people in this table. You get the chance to consult and express your views directly to your local council.
Okay, thank you for that.
People don't trust these consultations. That's why they've been bringing it up in this campaign, because they don't trust the consultations. They think the decision's already been made. That's why parents are actually voting with their kids, moving them to other schools. They don't trust it. That's why get back to local democracy and getting local referendums on issues like this.
As someone who has a child at Madras and two about to go there, I can concur with some of what is being said about the problems of getting kids into a new school, or any school for that matter. So I do have some sympathy with that. It's not entirely easy, but there we go. I'm going to move on, if I can. Can we take a question from Ian Ferguson? Is Mr. Ferguson here? Mr. Ferguson. Can you just wait for a mic, please? Thanks, so everyone can hear you clearly. Thank you.
Hi. This follows on from something Cara touched on, but does the panel believe that the council tax freeze is a good thing for all of Scotland, or just for Glasgow?
Okay. Right. We will eventually. I'd rather just broaden it out a little bit. Zara, would you like to kick off on the more general thing of the council tax freeze? If I just sort of recap the way it sort of strikes me as a somewhat controversial issue, very popular among some people, as they know what their council tax is for a period of time, indeed has been for a while. Other people believe that it is affecting the level of services that can be provided by local authorities. Perhaps that sums it up, maybe?
I think the reality is that we are facing cuts from Westminster that are being further compounded at Holyrood by the council tax freeze. So we are against council tax freeze from that regard, and we would like to see that actually local councils and local people and communities can have an open dialogue and make a decision on a council by council basis of if they want to raise more revenue locally to protect services. And actually when you give people those options, people do want to favour protecting services such as schools and hospitals over cuts. So I think that it's something we would push for, but for us in the Greens, we would actually reform council tax altogether, and we would vote for a land value tax, which is actually, rather than house by house, if you imagine you've got a bit of land with a tower block on it, the cost for that particular value of the piece of land would be shared amongst the people, so that if you're sort of living in a smaller house or a flat, you're going to pay less, and it's actually shown to bring down bills, but for 80% of those on lower to middle income council tax bands, but it actually brings in more income overall. So if you think of the site in Dunfermline that was bought over by Tesco's, which has not been used at all, at the moment that's a derelict site that people are very annoyed about, quite rightly, because Tesco aren't building on it, but they're holding it, and they're not having to pay any tax on that whatsoever. With land value tax, people like that would actually have to pay for sites that they're not using. So it would stop housing developers and people like Tesco's from buying land that then sits derelict, and it would benefit people and bring in more revenue. So that's actually what we'd push for, as a full reform of council tax.
Okay. Shirley and Somerville, if I could ask you, this is council tax freeze, something being espoused by the SNP for a great number of years now, since 2007. Yep. What do you say to the challenge that this is part of the reason that we are having so much squeeze on local authorities?
Well, the council tax freeze has been fully funded by the Scottish Government, and the council tax freeze has been fully funded by the Scottish Government, and I think that unless the Labour administration were actually planning to put the council tax up by more than inflation, well, I can't hear you. Apologies, we were told the mic would pick everything up, including us just moving. So the council tax freeze is fully funded.
Is that okay?
And the reason it's been fully funded by the Scottish Government is to specifically ensure that it doesn't affect council services. Now, if the Labour administration in Fife wanted to increase the council tax by more than inflation, then they would have had to do that. But it's been funded by the rate of inflation. The question, I think, points out to the new Labour Party leaflet, which is going out, which claims they seem to have thought of the council tax fee, something that they hadn't voted on in previous Scottish budgets passed by the SNP, but they did put in Glasgow. So it's interesting that Glasgow was good enough for the council tax fees, but not the people of Fife. I'm pleased that the Scottish Government changed that when the SNP got in, and it's all of Scotland that benefits from that, and benefits from the pure economy.
Cara Hilton, do you think Labour should end the council tax freeze and put council tax up?
No, I actually think the council tax freeze is the right policy at this time. People are feeling the living standards squeezed from rising energy costs, rising childcare costs, the fact that wages keep falling, low prices. So that is why Labour supports the council tax freeze. That's why I, as a Labour councillor, stood in a that is why I, as a Labour councillor, stood. Well, give me a chance to speak, please. That is why I, as a Labour councillor, stood in a manifesto committing us to a council tax freeze for the lifetime of our council session. The real issue is that the council tax freeze is underfunded, and Shirley Ann Somerville may say that that's not the case, but that is the reality. And the reality also is that the SNP government have taken the cuts from Westminster and they have doubled them when they passed them on to local authorities. So local authorities are feeling an unfair share of the pain. That is why we are having a debate about the school estates. That's why we're seeing cuts that are hitting our communities here in Fife hard. And I don't know what's happened to the SNP's commitment in 2007 to introduce a local income tax. Is that still something they're going to do? 6 years on, we're still waiting for the SNP's local income tax. That is an issue here that we should be discussing tonight.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, if you just that, Cara, you finished just there, Cara? Yes. Thank you. James, you're itching to get in.
Yeah, there's a general point about local government finance. Well, we support the council tax freeze as long as it's fully funded. But in terms of local government budgets themselves, the problem with local government budgets is that they're heavily centralised towards Fife House, and there's different ways how different councils do it across Scotland. So what we proposed actually in our manifesto with council elections last year is take those budgets and devolve them down to a ward level, because if you speak to people who work in the council or who go to committees, you can basically go into a council committee and you know exactly what the result's going to be before you even get it, because it's all about party politics in the council chamber. But well, of course that's changed now. But when you go down to the ward level, you've got a less partisan sort of nature between the councillors, and people are more concerned about how budgets are allocated. So there's some good thinking that you can do to sort of face up to the challenges of local government finance. But also, of course, as well, Fife Council's budget has been robbed of about £6.5 million a year due to the Scottish Government's business rates incentivisation scheme, which we, of course, welcomed, because what it meant was, if your council brought in a certain number of business rates above a target, they would be split between the council and the Scottish Government. Mm-hmm. Now, because so many councils across Scotland did so well, the SNP then changed the target so that the Scottish Government got more money and the council got less. So that's just the way that the Scottish Government likes to work. It just likes to centralise things. It doesn't really want to get communities involved in the budget process. So there's different ways that you can deal with budget constraints. But I think that to say just supporting the council tax fees is the be all and end all of local government finance, I think is just not really not really looking at the whole picture, actually.
I mean, Peter, a lot of people, if you go as you've been around the doors, if you ask them, I dare say they would say they're pretty happy of having their council tax frozen for the last goodness knows how long. Do they not?
Most people, yes, of course they're happy that there haven't been any increases. But the issue here is, why have we got a council? Seriously, because the government across in Holyrood is actually taking powers away from them. The councils are the ones who were there elected to be able to look after the people in their council area. As part of that, they were able to set budgets and actually set the council tax rates. And the government across there at the moment is taking that away from them. So they're trying to micromanage The people crossing Holyrood are actually trying to justify why they're there by taking powers away from the council.
So your position is, UKIP's position is that we would abolish local councils then?
No, that seems to be what's happening from the SNP across there. We think there should be more responsibility down at local level, and that is what we're backing, and allowing councils to take responsibility instead of taking it away from them up at Holyrood.
Okay, Susan?
Certainly from Liberal Democrats, we support the council tax freeze. At times when living standards and people's incomes are being squeezed, that is very important. I think it needs to be seen in the bigger context of one of the major Liberal Democratic promises in our manifesto that we took into the coalition that we have delivered has been the reduction in the amount of income tax that people pay, and we've all seen an increase in our tax allowances that's made a big difference to people's income. But if I can pick up on a couple of things that other people have said, the idea of devolving budgets to ward level, can I please just say that's just ludicrous? Do we want every single ward, i.e. 4 different bin lorries, every
No, that's not what was proposed.
No, that
that
is
wasn't
exactly
what was
what you said. You said
No,
devolve the
no,
whole
what we
budget down to
proposed
ward
last
level.
year, but that was
if
not
I
what
could
we
finish,
proposed.
can I please finish,
But
James?
James,
If you're talking about devolving budgets right down to ward level, we lose the economies of scale, we lose the ability to move our workforce to make the best use of them, we lose the ability to send where it is actually most needed. And I think that's what we have to actually look at in terms of local income, local councils' budgets, is targeting what money we do have. I'm not going to get into the spat about who's right and who's wrong here about various levels of council tax or funded or not funded. What's important is that we actually target local funds where they are most needed, to those who are most vulnerable and to those who are most able to, where we can actually help people to get into jobs, to get into training, to deal with some of the issues in our areas of major deprivation. That's certainly the commitment I've made as a local councillor and will make also as an MSP.
Okay, thank you for that. I just wonder what the good people of the audience, I wonder if you would care to put up your hand if you feel that you are enjoying or certainly support a continuing council tax freeze. Okay, thank you for that.
I think we need to stop the central and local governments squandering money. Your MSPs have just spent £7 million of your money updating the security at Holyrood. A total waste of money.
There's been a lot of money wasted at Holyrood.
Alex Salmon paid Amazon £9 million to move to Dunfermline.
Yeah.
Amazon do not pay UK taxes.
Yeah, but they employ a lot of people.
Destroying the high street.
Okay. Okay, we don't want to go on too far. I wanted to touch on a couple of hopefully fairly quick ones that came up in from our emails. And one was the issue of bridge tolls, which has been inextricably linked to this constituency since the bad old days when we had to pay, what did we pay, £1 was it, to go across the Forth Bridge and ATP across the road bridge.
Why are we discussing bridge tolls?
Because
they
were
got rid of years ago.
Yes.
But no plans to bring them back.
No plans at all.
So
okay.
why are we digging up the
right.
past?
Okay. Well. I'll tell you what, Peter. Then, if I could, let Shirley Ann Somerville answer your question by why then did John Swinney feel that he needed to give a commitment that there would be no tolls at all on the new bridge or put on the existing one?
Well, the clue's probably in the word new bridge, and we should probably make a commitment to ensure what happens with the new bridge, which makes it exceptionally relevant to this campaign and exceptionally relevant to the community. Well, unfortunately, it had been told, and it was the last bridges to receive the support of a government to actually get the tolls taken off it. It was the SNP government that took the tolls off the bridge, followed on obviously by a very good campaign from the Courier, which it ran for a couple of years. The reason that campaign had to happen was because the previous administration had decided to take it off the Erskine Bridge and the Skye Bridge, but for some inexplicable reason had decided to keep it on the Tay and the Forth, leaving Fife the only area that was charged. Now, the Courier ran a very good campaign at the time for that, but in the 2 years it took for the SNP administration to actually take forward that act, it cost every person in this constituency £233 a year. So that 2 year delay cost people, and that's something which I think it's understandable that they would want a reassurance that they will continue to be able to go on this new crossing free, and I'm very pleased that the Finance Secretary was able to give that commitment.
Good, thank you for that. That's the reason, presumably, people have been asking the question. I was just wondering, on the question of the new bridge and tolling, is there any of the candidates who think there is a case to be made for getting the people who use the bridge to make a contribution to paying for it?
The transport system are exactly the same as the roads. If you're not paying extra tolls on the road, why should you pay it on bridges?
Well, you are in some parts of the roads, in some parts of the country.
Not here in Scotland.
Not here in Scotland yet, not anymore, but you were. And you hear...
And if you had a UKIP government, you wouldn't have any
Okay,
anywhere.
you hear nothing... You hear nothing...
We were calling for toll-free long before it was banished from the Forth Bridge. And
Good.
we're still calling from one down in the second.
And you hear no concerns on the doorstep anywhere about the possibility of some future administration bringing back tolls?
No.
Relief all round.
I think there is a question around the amount that we spend on roads and bridge building. 1.4 billion has been committed to this new bridge development. To reinstate the existing bridge would only have cost 122 million. That's from Scottish Transport, that fact. And I think we need to ask the question of why is that where our money's been invested? We could have electrified all of Fife Railways for 500 million, which would have brought much greater benefit and actually taken congestion and cars off of the road, rather than just focusing on Dunfermline being a dormitory town, which links people to Edinburgh. There's no more roads going into Edinburgh, it's just a new bridge. For us, we'd like to see more investment going into better buses for people and rail links rather than bridges and roads. Okay. 4 times more was spent on roads than housing.
Okay, thank you.
There's no toll on proposing the bridge, but there is a toll on the Halbeath park and ride. You just paid 10 million for that to be built.
Okay, so no support at all for any tolls on existing or bridges yet to be built?
No, and let's be clear, the only reason that we are having this debate here tonight is because the SNP have been scaremongering about this issue. They put out a newsletter saying vote SNP to stop bridge tolls. The reality is Labour has absolutely no plans to have, support bridge tolls on the new Forth Bridge. We support the Forth crossing being free. Labour was the first party in the Scottish Parliament to scrap bridge tolls. We supported scrapping of bridge tolls over the Forth, and we continue to support free bridge tolls.
Would you accept that Labour weren't very keen, in fact not keen at all until after they were defeated in the 2007 election, to remove the tolls on the Tay and the Forth?
Well, the key
just
issue
for
here
accuracy.
is, no, the SNP are misleading and scaring voters here in Dunfermline. Everyone agrees that bridge tolls should be free. Let's move on to the real issues in this election. The fact that we've got a Scottish government
okay.
want to break up Britain. Never mind the issues that affect people here in Dunfermline.
We've now reached 8 o'clock. Are we happy to go on for 15 more minutes? Yeah? 15 more minutes. This is a very quick question. I want to go from left to right. Do you feel, and again this came from emails in different sort of ways, that we are better policed in Fife now under Police Scotland than we were under the old Fife Constabulary?
No. No.
That's a good... Is there any more to it? That's a good, clear answer, John. I like it. Yeah, we will come to the audience. I want to hear the panel first, but thank you. We will come to the audience. No.
No, I don't think we are. It's an issue that's been raised with me on the doorsteps. People are especially concerned about what's happening to community policing. We're seeing police officers not turning up at community engagement meetings, which I think is unacceptable. People are concerned about the loss of the front desk service at Oakley. Someone uses that front desk every 20 minutes. I think it's vital in making the police accessible. And who knows what is in the pipeline when we're seeing the Police Scotland hit by £60 million of cuts thanks to the SNP government. 60 million this year, 60 million next year. It's extremely worrying time for people here in Fife about police services.
There were a lot more police stations in the villages closed, in West Fife villages.
Okay, thank you, sir. We'll just hear the candidates, if you don't mind, to start with. So,
I think we do need to ask in terms of, what are our police there, what is their job, and actually what do communities see as the role of the police. And I think that people do want to see visible community policing.
So are we better now or better as we were?
I think that there's... I've spoke to local police officers, and there is a feeling that actually in terms of what's happened with the nationalisation of the service, that it's been good from the point of view from police officers that I spoke to in terms of streamlining, so there's not loads of layers of management, but there is a feeling and a real concern about actually that it's going to stretch the police officers that are left, and that is going to negate services.
Okay,
so
thank you for that. James Reekie?
Well, of course, between 2007 and 2011, when the SNP were actually listening to other people, the Conservatives proposed extra police officers, and they listened, and we got extra police officers in Scotland. So
yeah, questions about where we are now.
But what I was saying in terms of Fife, you know, the SNP have been saying that crime's gone down. No, it's not. If you look at assault,
it's a question about policing. Do you feel that we are being better policed now under Police Scotland in Fife than we were under Fife Constabulary? That's the question.
I've came across a lot of police officers. I think that we supported, of course, the merging to Police Scotland for streamlining reasons and things like that. But the answer to the question is that I think that a lot of, in terms of the local police force, they feel as if that they are moving towards an administrative system which is outdated, which was the one of Strathclyde Police. So I think that they are quite frustrated at that. So I think that they're spending a lot of time getting, going through the reorganisation.
What do you think, as the prospective MSP for this constituency, are you being better policed now, or as it were, with Fife Constabulary?
No,
that's not. No. Susan, I think I'm right in saying that Liberal Democrats are the only party, despite what others have said, the only party who at Holyrood opposed and have consistently opposed the join together.
Right. We are the.
Sorry,
yeah,
the Greens.
We were totally opposed to the creation of Police Scotland at the time it went through the Scottish Parliament. We have stood by that all the way through. However, it is with absolutely no pleasure that we start to see all the things that we were scared of then, that we were feared of, that we feared then, actually starting to happen. I think there are issues about streamlining, and we've certainly got no difficulties with getting the best value for money. Layers of management in the police were being taken out long before Police Scotland actually came into establishment. We saw that, and we saw the establishment of community engagement and community policing. However, it is actually very sad to see so soon after we warned of the closure of public counters, the lack of commitment to community engagement, and that we are seeing actually down at ward level. We are already seeing these problems. Now, I'm very glad to see the nods in the audience from the Labour Party who supported it going through in Holyrood. Perhaps if you'd supported us at that point, we wouldn't be where we are now. Okay. So I simply cannot see that we are as well policed now. What I would say, though, is that it's going to be very difficult to go back, and we need to actually come together to see that we move this forward for the benefit of our communities. Okay. When we have a Chief Constable himself saying that although he is absolutely committed to bringing Police Scotland in on budget, he himself does personally not see how he can do it without reducing police numbers, and that he was reported saying months ago.
Sheila Ensemble, it was your party in government who brought this in. It was their idea. It has been heavily attacked. Is this a better way to police in Fife, or is it not?
Well, I think you have to look at the outputs that are received from that. We do have higher police numbers now in Fife as we do throughout Scotland through the SNP, and that's continued while we've been in majority government. Recorded crime is dramatically down in Fife as well, and I think that's to be welcomed. Police will be used in different ways over time, and I think it's reasonable enough for Police Scotland to look at how their estate is used. But let's be very clear, the stations are not closing. We're talking about a public service desk, and that goes to the heart of how do we police our communities? Would we rather see them behind a desk, or would we rather see people out in their communities? Now, my concern about what's happening in Fife at the moment is that it's an internal procedure to Police Scotland, and we're not asking the actual people of Oakley or in other areas what they think, which is why I've spoken to the Chief Inspector about this. We've received assurances about the police station in Oakley not being closed, and I'm glad of that. But I've also said to him that if I'm successful on Thursday at getting elected, I would seek to carry out a public consultation in Oakley to find out what they want to see for their police service. And I think that's the part that's missing at the moment, is actually hearing from the people in the communities themselves.
Enough consultation. Okay, thanks for that. Chief Adam, are we better policed now?
No, we're not better policed. Shirley Ann says that we've got more police here in Fife. Well, we may have on paper, but some of the times they're actually outside Fife because they're being moved around, the same as some of their equipment, so they're not actually here. They are supposed to be a local service. You're supposed to be a local service, working for the local people, not state controlled, centrally controlled. That is the problem. You can't centralise it and keep the local contacts.
I think the other thing we need to remember is that if costs
Susan,
are being saved, they're being saved by cutting civilian posts.
Okay.
We've seen that already. Those
Susan,
jobs are then being done by serving
bit.
officers. They're not out.
There were quite a few voices. First of all, I wonder whether, on a show of hands, whether you think the good people of Fife that we are better police now than we were under Fife Constabulary. Better now than we were before. Still the same. Made no difference. None at all. Who thinks it's made any difference? Does it concern anyone about the perceptions that when you go to the police station there won't be someone there to speak to over the counter? Or, as Shonan Somerville says, actually they will be out more in the constituency? Yes? No.
I can't say, I've only been here 5 years in Fife, so I can't say, but I can say that any time that you want to have a policeman at a neighbourhood organisation, they will come and they will meet with your group and they will support you. It may not be, rushing down to a station, but if you want them, either through text, through email, through tweeting, through picking the phone, they'll come and help you.
Okay. Sure. Any other views? Sir? Yeah.
I've spoken to the senior officers in Fife about the transition, and they see the community policing and most of the bread and butter policing as unchanged and just as effective as it was. The benefit, and the reason I put my hand up is I think it's better, is they have direct access to specialist teams who can come in when there's a serious crime, as there have been in Dunfermline recently, with the young lad who jumped off the bridge. And they can access those specialist services very effectively, much more effectively than as a unified service.
Okay, thank you. Yep.
Our last community liaison meeting, a new liaison officer, I spoke to her about things. And one Sunday, she was on the police officer government, so the body treated card. And they're saying there's a problem, it's getting worse, it's not getting better.
Okay.
So I called the police in 1997 on a Sunday morning because there was a bomb box at Selectron Factory and there was only one policeman in Fife at the time. Nothing's changed.
Okay.
16 years.
Right. Was it the same policeman that was doing the body in Carden? So that's a hell of a shift. Sorry, I shouldn't make light of it. Sorry. Sir, yes.
I think it's the 1,100 extra policemen that the SNP's put on it.
That was actually our policy, that's not the SNP's policy. That's not the SNP's policy.
32 chief constables were far too much, we don't need them.
Right. 8. I think we had 8. We didn't have 32, do we? I don't think.
No, but that's really
Oh, that far back. Yeah, good point. Is it better just to have one? Sir?
Ask Mr. Reekie how many police councils have been lost to the English police force in the last few years.
Sorry, how many, just so everyone else can hear?
How many constables have been lost to the English police force in the last few years?
That's not what I'm concerned with. I'm concerned with the period between 2007 and 2011 where the Conservatives got more police officers in Scotland through negotiations with the Scottish Government.
Would it be
And what I'm
better
saying is...
then if the police forces were united across the whole of the United Kingdom?
No, I'm not suggesting that. That's just ridiculous. Right, no, I'm not suggesting.
Okay, we've got about 5 minutes left. We'll sort of, yes, go on, sir. Last say on the police.
Hello, back to the debate again. Sheldon and Suzanne mentioned Queen Margaret. Well, that's a service.
Oh, yeah, we're coming on to that right now. Yeah, is that, yeah.
Can I raise this question right now?
No, well, yeah, fire away, because that'll bring us on to the subject.
You mentioned fighting hostings and bringing back services. Right, I led a campaign in 2011 to save the hostels.
Okay.
The only party
Yeah.
that helped in that campaign was the Labour Party. Right? Wait a minute, I'm going to finish. Nicola Sturgeon says it was too far gone for her to intervene. And guys like Jim Wilson refused to sign the petition.
Okay.
And we were successful and we kept that hospice open. It was through the help of any of the political parties. It was used to do anything about it.
Okay.
And you're standing there and saying you're going to do this, you're going to do that. Rubbish.
Okay. For many, many years, for those who may not be entirely as steeped in it as others, for many, many years, there's been a huge issue in this constituency under its many guises in the by-election in Dunfermline West Fife some years ago. This is one of the hottest topics and still is today. From our online questions that have come through, the question that emerges on health is again of two sets of services, or two services, accident emergency and maternity services, where there is certainly a view out there that they should be moved from Victoria Hospital in Kirkcaldy to Queen Margaret Hospital. And I wonder what you think about that, Cara Hilton.
Right, I mean, this has certainly been a big issue in the doorsteps. People are rightly angry that we've got the excellent facilities up at Queen Margaret Hospital, yet so many services have been centralised in Kirkcaldy. And one of my priorities, as if I elected as an MSP on Thursday, would be to campaign for more services to be located here in Dunfermline and to protect the services such as the hospice, which Ronnie mentioned, that are already here. You know, there are more and more families moving to Dunfermline. It's a growing area. We need hospital services here on our doorstep.
Shelley and Summers, do you not think that it makes sense, though? The counter-argument is that it makes sense to have these services centralised. It's a similar argument that we hear in other parts of our circulation area, for example, in Perth, which is in the shadow of PRI with Nine Wells Hospital. I know it doesn't affect this constituency. To have a centre of excellence like Victoria, which is not, some would argue, too far away.
Well, some might argue it's too far away, but I think if you ask the people, particularly in the West Fife villages, then it's very far away, particularly for accident, emergency and maternity services. The maternity services was a strong bone of contention. This hospital in Dunfermline was opened with a maternity wing built into it. Now, unfortunately, under the Labour and Liberal Democrat administration, the consultation process started and it was signed off by the Scottish Executive at that time.
Sorry, madam, if you sorry.
Gordon Brown told the ex.
Hang on, whoa.
Rachel Squire.
Sorry. I will let you in, but can I just hear the candidate speak first? Shelley-Ann.
So we have a consultation process that's began long before the Scottish Government went in, a PFI project to build a wing at the Victoria to include the new accident and emergency services that was again begun under the last administration. That makes it exceptionally difficult to get out of that because the joys of PFI mean that we now have a project in Kirkcaldy which we will be paying for the next 30 years. So the accident emergency service is a difficult one. Maternity services can be brought back, and I was pleased that the Chief Executive confirmed that would happen, and that would actually go along.
Maternity services run by who?
PFI was Labour's fault.
Well,
are you seriously telling me?
Sorry, just do it. Can I hear from the lady? Just for a second. Can I hear the lady?
If you want to call into question midwife services, that's what already happens at Forth Park.
Sorry. Sorry. Sorry, can I hear from the lady at the back, please? Yes. But briefly, if you don't mind, because we will finish on time.
John Wilson and NHS Fife have not said that they will be bringing back deliveries to Dunfermline. They are bringing a midwife-led unit for extended antenatal services and postnatal services. And if you wonder why I can say that, I run the antenatal service at Queen Margaret. Thank you very much.
I'm more than happy to share with the audience and with the Courier the correspondence that we've had from NHS Fife that shows that, and I look forward to taking that on if successful on Thursday.
This is an absolute nonsense. I was delivered by a midwife in a cottage next to Cooper. That was not a maternity-led service.
Okay. Right. Okay.
It's a nonsense.
The whole issue of
that's good. Right, Peter. Yep.
The whole issue of accident and emergency comes down to a lot of people don't necessarily realise that this is actually because of the EU. Working Time Directive, it has an effect on all the consultants across the whole of Britain. It also has an effect on, because of previously, we used to have a lot of Commonwealth people coming across to fill in spaces in our hospitals. They provided a good service. They can't do that because of the EU. The other thing is, we cannot, anywhere in Fife, run two services. And so therefore a decision was made at the new place there to have the accident and emergency.
Okay.
And also the Queen Margaret, the whole idea at Queen Margaret is that that is there for day care surgery. What used to happen was that people who were in for daycare surgery, the night before, their surgeon was in accident emergency, they couldn't get it done. That's why the list built up. They've now got two separate things, but you've got accident emergency there, you've got daycare services there to cut down the list of daycare services.
Okay, Peter, thanks. This
Peter
gentleman's arm's going to fall off. John, you had a good shout. Yes, sir. Briefly, if you will.
Somerville, you make a lot of noise about a midwife-led unit. I've worked in the acute services of the NHS for over 24 years. There is nothing more frightening than a major obstetric hemorrhage as far as surgery is concerned. And if you think that it's a good idea to have a midwife-led unit with no consultant-led or acute services on site to deal with any emergencies that would crop up, you are being very,
okay.
Well, can I, on that very point, I had the pleasure of actually speaking to the head of the Royal College of Midwives at the weekend, and she had no problem with the idea. I would have thought she would have raised that issue with me directly. So I'm more than happy to take her advice on this issue. More than happy to take the head of the Royal College of Midwives to help him.
Okay. Guys, we're going to have to bring it near an end. For completeness, Zara, on the issue of accident, emergency, and maternity.
I mean, I think we're seeing a growing trend towards centralisation, which we are against. We will always protect local services for people and access to those services. I was out in Sailing today, speaking to Salin, sorry. It's just my accent how I pronounce it, but I was out in Sailing today, and I was engaging with local people out there, and in all seriousness, I spoke to a young mum who had to deliver her baby in her house because of limited access to services, and older people, we have an elderly population.
Your four local services, right?
Yes.
Understood.
And we'll fight to protect
James
them.
Reekie, on this subject, please.
Yeah, look, I mean, obviously we never really wanted to see the A&E service move to Kirkcaldy, but I think we're seeing, Zara's right, you're seeing a trend towards centralisation of services. Of course, NHS 5's budget has been cut by almost £12 million because of the new funding measure from the Scottish Government, which also has impacts on their budgets, but I don't think we want to see any more continuing trends of centralisation.
Thanks for that. Susan, briefly, if you would, please.
Very briefly, I think I introduced the subject right at the beginning of the debate. The people of Dunfermline are concerned that they are being shortchanged. What is in place just now with the Victoria and ancillary services only at Queen Margaret is not working for the people of Dunfermline. It's also not working for the people of Kirkcaldy or the rest of Fife. And we need an acknowledgement, a simple acknowledgement that what's in place is not working and a commitment to do something about it. That's what I'm prepared to work for, to look for solutions to the existing problems we've got. They're around A&E, they're around maternity, but that is not the only problems that we have in our hospital services in Fife, and we need to do something about it generically.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're paying a stealth tax of approximately £37 every time you visit the hospital in Kirkcaldy.
Okay, John, thank you very much for that. Ladies and gentlemen, I have failed in my promise to our candidates and to you. We've run over by 5 minutes, so I am an abject failure tonight. For that, I apologise. We're going to conclude the debate there. I suspected we'd need that extra 15 minutes because that's what tends to happen. It gets exciting and interesting just towards the end, and that's what happened tonight. Nothing remains but to thank the staff here who've been excellent in providing this fantastic facility, which certainly the Courier will return to. Thank you for taking part tonight, for coming out in this sort of rather, if not it's cold, certainly damp evening and taking part here tonight. And on behalf of the Courier, may I wish all of the candidates equally every success on Thursday. Thank you very much indeed.